What it means to have Pluto in the first house, Pluto conjunct the Ascendant, and some of the correspondences to other systems. In this short recording, I look at the correspondences to the Mayan and the Genekey. If anyone has information on correspondences, like what that would look like mirrored in the human design system or the Vedic, I'd be interested in hearing what you have to say in the comments. So this placement in particular has a lot to do with our relationship with ourselves. The first house is our identity, and so it's very much at the core of everything. And having Pluto here brings in this energy of needing to repeatedly die onto ourselves. We have to go through the death and rebirth process on a very deep level with our identity, and it brings a lot of obviously transformation, and there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of hot, cold, there's a lot of energy that comes with Pluto, because Pluto is represented by the death and rebirth process. It's represented by everything deep, dark, and secret. It's also represented in everything psychological and the subconscious mind. And so having Pluto here in the first house, especially if it's conjunct the Ascendant, then the subconscious mind is constantly being brought to the surface with Pluto there, kind of calling it forward and doing that excavation work, and then going through these massive changes on a psychological level. And so you may find yourself interacting with others' subconscious minds more. So bringing that energy forward as well in other people, because the Ascendant is also how people perceive us. So if you are being perceived with Pluto right there, Pluto is kind of at the forefront and is going to call this energy forward. And so a lot of the themes that are mirrored in the other systems play on this energy. And in the Mayan astrology, it is crocodile, it's IMOX, and that might show up in not necessarily your day sign or your trekana, but it will show up in your tree of life somewhere. And the Mayan system is the most simplified system compared to all the other systems out there. So, if you have this energy of Pluto, like a really strong Pluto placement, such as in the first house, it's going to show up on your tree of life in the Mayan astrology for sure. And so, crocodile is, it's the first sign. It is the primal. It is the frictional energy that created everything. And so that's sort of how Pluto can be represented there. And so this primal energy is going to bring a lot of shadow forward, and this is where we can see the shadow of the subconscious mind, right? Pluto's going to really go in and dig in to the subconscious mind, into that primal instinctual energy. And this is where the Genekey 21 shows up, and Genekey 21, it moves from control to authority and then into valor. And so we can see the progression of this energy when Pluto is sourcing its power in the wrong way. It is total control, right? Total control of the self, being very restrictive with the self, with movements, with self-protection, or with others in the environment. And as it moves into authority, it becomes more comfortable in the responsibility that it's trying to maintain and hold and master. And so as it begins to master that, it can become an authority in what that energy is. And so authority with Pluto would be allowing ourselves to go through the death and rebirth process when we are being called to die onto ourselves. Not because we're being controlled by anyone in the external environment, right? Or not because we're trying to control too much the external environment. Really, when we're mastering this is when we can just allow ourselves to move with the natural rhythms and to move with the energy that has been culminating within us as we do all of the internal work, by interacting with what comes up in the subconscious mind, by what we deem needs to change and transform within us over time through a methodical process that allows us to see exactly what it is we need to let go of. And the fullest exalted form of this is valor. So going from control to authority and then to valor. And valor is really taking the high ground in our process with ourselves and knowing when it's time to go through that death and rebirth process, knowing when it's time to allow others to go through that process around us, knowing when it's time to let go. And by using power in this way and not seeking it externally or seeking it from the wrong shadow, like from that subconscious realm that's just primal and instinctual and it wants power for power, control for control, or money for money. If it's not rooted in that, then it is going to allow vision to emerge, because Pluto is there to really assist us in stripping away everything that is unnecessary to come to this place, the fullest place of integrity, the fullest place of internal authority, and then that's reflected out like in nobility in action, right? In divine ideal, like the vision, right? That's truly at the core, the most refined vision that we can bring forward within our identity. It's in the first house, so it's going to show up in who we are, in the way we articulate, in the way we look, in the way we're perceived by others, our attitude, right? The way we interact with the world and the way the world interacts with us. So Pluto in the first house is a very powerful placement, and it's connected to the underworld, right? So it's connected to everything that we won't necessarily perceive as positive. So often anyone with this placement can be perceived as being very frictional or very transformative in their energy, because often these people are interacting with the subconscious minds of those around them, right? So again, going into another system would be the Uranian Astrology, and one of the Transneptunian planets is Hades, right? So Hades, in that realm, Hades did not choose to go and rule over hell, right? Hades was sent down there, and he was actually someone who ruled quite well, because he was put in a place where, you know, there was a lot of very strong emotion, right? You could just imagine like all of the pain and suffering that gets shoved down into hell. And so Pluto kind of contains all of this, and Hades really learned to master working with that energy, because in life we're all going to be confronted with these energies, and we're going to all have to choose how we're going to navigate through them. Strong emotions, difficult emotions, and then, you know, how we can catalyze them within ourselves, right? So in the first house, it's like move, jump, dance. There's a lot of body that can come into play to assist, body movement that can come into play to assist breaking this energy up. And even just, you know, anything to do with using the voice or the way that we dress, the way that we, you know, can express ourselves physically, can help to transform this energy. It's the energy that Pluto is bringing to us that naturally has its duality. And so we're having to work with that duality. But as much as it can bring us into this kind of emotional sort of turmoil energy and really push us to transform and to go and seek that vision and to go and transform until we can come out fully embodied in that vision, it's also going to bring the, you know, the lighter sides, right? So there's the lighter side of Pluto is having to do with surrender, right? It's having to do with trusting in the path and the divine ideal of things, right? Because the control, the wanting to hold on and not change is where we cause our own suffering, right? That's the negative aspects. So when we can truly see like where our power is coming from, this is a lot of the lessons of having Pluto conjunct the Ascendant. Pluto in the first house has to do with, do you know where your power comes from? Do you know who has control over you, right? And we're working with that energy and uncovering those lessons. So the Muladhara is very activated with this placement, and it shows up in Crocodile as well. Like that's just that instinctual, the fire is lit at the root, and it's very magnetic, very frictional, as I mentioned. And so this energy is also kind of, creating the circumstances for us to really clarify where our power comes from. Where are we sourcing it within ourselves? What emotions, what subconscious drives are we sourcing our power from? When we interact with the world, everything we say, everything we do is either generating a healthy, allowing us to cultivate a healthy relationship with power, or it's allowing us to source power from, a place of loss, victimization, blame, all of these negative emotions that we can cling on to, right? Fear, everything to do with the subconscious, that gut instinctual drive. And the subconscious mind can be, very deeply rooted in fear with that first chakra there. So we're having to look at where power is sourced from in the deep subconscious realms, right? In the deep depths of hell and our own personal hell, but also, the good places, right? Because Pluto is going to show us where we can source our power from and how we can act from the most exalted state, right? How we can learn to come into nobility and valor with our actions, and rather than going into the madness of it. And so this energy has its exalted form, and then it also has its limitations, and understanding that the duality in it is that we have to also look at what is sourcing energy from us, right? Everything is sourcing energy from something else. So analyzing and looking at the relationships and being able to see clearly what kind of energy is being sourced from you, what kind of power is being sourced from you, right? And is that a kind of power exchange that you want? Is that a power dynamic that you want? And then really refining that and really coming to the place where we're dying onto ourselves in order to come into that bigger vision, embody that bigger vision with that Pluto energy driving as an engine, and then allowing the right people, like coming into the alignment with the instinct, with that proper instinct, that proper primal energy, will really allow us to see clearly the people that are in front of us, right? And what their motives are in sourcing power from us, right? And what that give and take in that exchange is, and come to a healthy place with that. So definitely anybody who has had childhood experiences where there was a lot of power play, either with a parent or some sort of event or dynamic that happened that challenged that, could be very strong, right? Indication of someone having Pluto in the Ascendant in the first house. And so coming into the correct attitude and the correct understanding and educating ourselves on the mastery of Pluto, and really allowing what it has to offer, the gifts that it has to offer, bestowed onto us, it will then correspond with the outside world, right? And people won't see this harsh energy of kind of Pluto can be seen as a very visually as a very kind of restrictive and constrictive energy, sort of like Saturn in a sense, when it's not in its when it's not in its city, right? When it's not in its exalted form. So we can work on that as well, coming into alignment, and then others don't feel that Pluto energy because it's sitting right there on the ascendant, right? So they're not going to feel it as strongly, and that's key to also drawing in the right people, right? Because you don't want people to be afraid of you because this Pluto energy is so prominent. It's kind of like having Scorpio ascendant, right? Anything in the first house, even Saturn in the first house, right, can cause different things, but show up like as this restrictive energy. So it's more difficult to approach these people. So working with this, working with Pluto in the first house requires us to continuously navigate the subconscious realms of ourselves and others, and to learn to master, to learn when not to speak, when to speak, how to take that emotional energy and really bring it into the self and go and search for that vision deep down, and then to release all the layers, all the unnecessary layers and identities and roles that we've taken on that don't belong to us, and to go through that death and rebirth process. So this could also, in Vedic astrology, I'm just thinking this could also be related to the Ashlesha Nakshatra is really coming to mind, because it's, you know, in the moon, right? So moon Ashlesha, and fourth pada. Everything is accentuated. Everything in the first house that we would do is going to be amplified to some extent with Pluto there, right? Everything becomes a little bit more dramatic. So just knowing that, and then using the tools for transformation that I mentioned, really getting into the body, but also just writing and going in there, going into the subconscious mind, using all the techniques that you know to go into the subconscious mind to kind of see what's in there, so that it doesn't just come out and control, right, in the wrong way, can really help and assist a person. So there's a beautiful energy with this in the 21st gene key. It has a lot to do with this magnetic influence, you know, love and community, and finding the vision, finding the courage, and moving towards that, moving towards the highest ground. So if you have any information on how it corresponds to other systems you're working with, be more than interested in hearing. Maybe you can leave it in the comments. I really like juxtaposing all of these systems, looking for the strongest correspondences. And then when I read a person's chart, I can see the patterns, right, emerge. And those patterns that emerge are usually showing me where that person's soul is truly evolving, like what exactly they're here working on, their soul mission, what kind of energies they're using to evolve and elevate themselves through these different layers of consciousness. So please share. And if you want to book a session with me, it's at inspiringplayfulevolutions.com under System Ancient Systems of Gnosis. So in this video, I worked with Whole House System, and Whole House System is basically the degrees, or the system at its most, the house system at its most basic, closest to the Earth. And I have a video. I did Libra in Pluto in the 12th house, and that was based on the Placidus system. And the Placidus system can be seen as less of an objective and simplified view of the person's life, but more having to do with a psychological evolution of where the energies go, and more interactive as things evolve, as things grow and evolve. They become more complex. And so I see the Placidus as more complex, and the whole sign system as just like, it's what we're born with, it's what immediately is there, it's the most simplified way to divide the houses. That's what I have for you. Take care, I'll talk to you soon.